everybody, and welcome to our session Reality Check XR's role in shaping the future of global development. I'm your host, Nick Martin, and I'm joined by two incredible panelists. One, Natalie from XR Global, and Albright from the World Bank ITS Technology and Innovation Lab. We are going to spend the next 25 minutes with you running through some of the latest issues and challenges in the XR, VR, AR space. And we're going to hopefully come out of here with some really fantastic insights into the potential of this incredible technology for global development. So that's my intro. I did that pretty well without taking the headset off, I feel like. So we're going to start with some introductions. Natalie, I'm going to have you start. I want you just very briefly just to discuss your background. We're going to use the term, I think, XR as the kind of framing term. Some people may know it as VR, others AR. XR to kind of encompass our conversation. Natalie, over to you for a quick intro, and then we will move to Albright.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Natalie, co-founder of XR Global. We are the first to market online offline platform built specifically for upskilling emerging market youth and workforce. So we've trained nearly 115,000 people on our extended reality platform, thus far mostly in Africa, but also in Asia and the Middle East. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, Albright, over to you. 3:30, 4 a.m., your time, my time. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in XR technology.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's such an exciting time to be here. I'm Albright Enyioha, a Nigerian XR developer, but I shouldn't summarize, my profile as that because I've worn quite a number of hats. Firstly, as a petroleum engineer, then as a game developer, as a digital fashion designer, then as a VR developer. However, one thing that has been in common with me for all these roles is to use technology to advance human development. I have a first degree in petroleum engineering and went on to do an MBA, but I should mention that I currently serve as a VR AI engineer at the World Bank ITS Technology and Innovation Lab, where I collaborate with multidisciplinary teams to develop innovative solutions. Thank you, Nick.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so if you're watching us live, I want you to tell us a little bit about where you are in the world, and if you're working on XR technology, we'd love to hear about it. So go ahead and drop a comment in the chat, and we will come back to it. I have three buckets of questions for this esteemed group of panelists here. We're going to talk about access and equity, behavior change and adoption, and some future prospects for this technology. And I'm going to do my best to try and play the skeptic, because we've got two folks on the line here who are pretty positive and enthusiastic about the groundbreaking potential for this technology. So, Natalie, I'm going to start with you. But my question is, can these headsets, given their sometimes extreme costs and maintenance requirements, can they realistically be scaled in low-income regions? What's the current state of play, and what are you all seeing? Natalie, we start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And you know that I love this question because I think that everybody's fear is the hardware component, and it's really not an obstacle. So we have about 1,700 VR headsets in Africa alone at the moment. I come from the agri-tech and fintech space where, in the fields, a lot were using tablets or mobile phones and handing those to their agents or their field extension officers. Yeah, headsets, especially the ones that we use that are, pretty intuitive, more 3 degrees of freedom versus the 6 degrees of freedom, they're inexpensive, somewhere around 350 pounds or euros and equivalent in dollars. We actually provide all of our hardware to our clients because we then can keep it off their balance sheets. For sustainability purposes, after 24 months of leasing from us, we actually transfer ownership to them, but we're able to then support it 24/7, the software and the hardware. So the two main ways that we roll out, on the consumer front or a B2C, totally understandable. It might be a while in Africa before that happens. But we work with large entities, USAID, GIZ, Asia Development Bank, a lot of the global nonprofits, as well as fintech, agritechs, and companies. And when they are rolling out training, we basically co-create and design the content. We then build it out, and then we train trainers. And they roll it out either through a hub model. So with one DFI in Mozambique, we're doing youth vocational training. They have containers across rural areas. We have headsets in those, and the trainees rotate in and out. It's important to say that for us, on average, we're decreasing training time by 60%. So if you're taking a half-day training and you're doing it in 30 minutes, you can get 10 people per day per headset. And then the other methodology is through agent networks or facilitators who have good days and bad days. So with headsets, you can actually create that consistency and keep that magic going while also providing the data, because once our headsets sync online, all the data from embedded assessments can be seen by the clients and all the metrics.
It's amazing. And I know we want to go deeper on the efficacy and the impact that you're seeing, both of you are seeing. But my follow-up question for you, super short answer if you can, like a lot of people who might be watching here are thinking back to a one laptop per child scenario where, we had to keep these laptops from breaking. And I think when we think about maintenance of hardware in the field, it really does raise a lot of anxiety for those digital development practitioners. Like, how do you keep these units from breaking, and what do you do if they break? Given that you've got some of these lease to own models, and people are actually holding on to them.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually quite robust, to be honest. I mean, we've only had a couple of out of the 1,700 or so that have. It's more about getting direct sunlight into the lenses, which we train the trainers on to prevent. But they're robust, and again, they're cheaper than phones. They're cheaper than tablets, so it's not the end of the world. We always have extra in country that we can replace, and we provide one replacement per set of 8 for clients.
Okay. Albright, I want to come to you now. Like, what's the current state of play, and what are you seeing, in terms of the costs and the maintenance requirements? But, are you really seeing the potential for adoption in global majority countries for this technology?
Yeah, definitely. Nigeria and similar regions are actually growing a lot of interest in the use of XR technologies. And, for the high cost issue that we have, headsets like, let's say, Oculus Quest 2, that's about $300 to $400. It might be quite discouraging in a country where, the average monthly income is about $150 per month. But we are finding ways to, go around this. For example, we have localized labs like Emisi 3D, and we have more of these labs in different pockets that provide high-end, gadgets like this for people around the region that are interested to have access to. Then it's also about the technology. What are the alternatives that can be used in place of these headsets? And we look at, the Google Cardboard that came out that allows you to use, the gyroscope feature on your phone and just to test, or even simulators, XR simulators, where you can, test out building XR development without the use of VR. The whole idea is we need more people to understand what this technology is about, how to use it, how to develop for it. And I think we should be VR headset or technology agnostic than say we are boxed by this problem, but find a way around it, which we are currently doing. And finally, I should mention that Unreal Engine, I think in, was it last year, they opened up a Lagos chapter led by Matthew Isikweme, and it recently hosted a Lagos Meet 3D billboard competition. And the whole idea was use any technology that you have there, just showcase something really nice that can be displayed on a 3D billboard. So we're looking for ways around this high cost or high maintenance issue by looking at the various options we have.
I think of Nigeria as one of the most entrepreneurial countries on the continent, but also in the world. Like, are you seeing examples where small entrepreneurs are using headsets to drive forward business opportunities? Is there an ecosystem for that yet? Or is most of the use still focused on some of these larger, maybe call it like training and development projects? Where are you seeing that any potential for this technology to really power some of that entrepreneurship economy?
Definitely. So it's more like a granular or localized growth that we are seeing, because when you get out there on the streets, you see that you have more people that are already aware of this technology. It's not something that is quite new to them, and Nigeria is a very entrepreneurial country,
Yeah.
and I've worked for a couple of businesses that you see, for example, Total View Media. The whole idea was to use VR technology to, sort of boost will I say, converting spaces, real spaces, into digital spaces for people to see wherever they were, and to maybe shop houses, or visit places that they that they couldn't visit.
Yeah.
So these are just few examples. And when we have maybe some conferences or some meetups, you see different localized businesses talking about it. So I think it's more of providing a platform like what you're doing right now, and inviting more of this local content, to showcase their work, and we'll get more, traction from that field.
Yeah, thank you, Albright. So I want to kind of build off of that and take us to a conversation specifically around behavior change and adoption. Um, how do we ensure this technology, XR technology, can really be adopted effectively by local communities when we know that these populations have varying degrees of digital literacy? Really, everywhere in the world, people have varying degrees of digital literacy with this tech. And does it work? Like, are we seeing results that are maybe better or different than in our traditional training or traditional skills building in the case of L&D? And do you have any specific examples for us you could share? So, Natalie, let's go to you, and then we'll come back to Albright.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's more a behavior change on the development agency side, to be honest, than the communities.
Yeah, tell us more.
It's the communities are embracing it wholeheartedly. So our qualitative data and quantitative data shows that, 80 to 90% prefer VR after being introduced to it than e-learning or even in person. We are seeing up to
90%. That's that's a pretty substantial stat. I feel like we should sit on that for a little bit. And wow, that's incredible. Okay.
Absolutely. And it's not just young people. I mean, young people, it's obvious they love it. They're, the gaming kind of thing, but we're training 67-year-olds, we're training small farmers, we're training, and to be honest, actually had an investor the other day say, "Are we trying to kill ants with bazookas?" And I just laughed, because to be honest, VR technology it's utilizing the 4 learning styles. It is the most effective methodology for low literacy, for low to digital, no digital literacy. So it's actually using all the, even for disabled learners, it's proven. And there's studies by PwC, numerous ones, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, just show the dramatic increase in knowledge retention, which isn't surprising, because, e-learning, we're all doing other things, not to mention that primarily we're focused on bottom of the pyramid in terms of XR Global, and many don't have their phones. But it's there's no distraction. They're being immersed into the space and the understanding they're learning. We do everything in local languages and dialects. And we bring things to life through storytelling. So we've seen up to a 5 times increase in knowledge retention versus traditional learning. With the USAID Feed the Future study we did in Rwanda to kick us off in 2019, we saw 9 times difference than their PowerPoint training they we're doing with agri-dealers.
Wow.
A 60% decrease in training time, which allows those trainees to focus more on their families and their businesses, and to not prevent women from training who can't come to other trainings because of family responsibilities. So it's a dramatic difference. And once people see it, they don't go back.
So it's really exciting to hear, Natalie. When I think of the use cases for this technology, I think of agricultural extension work, entrepreneurship training. I think of warehouse management. Like, can you give us, a couple categories and then a specific example that you're really excited about where this technology has made a groundbreaking difference in learning and development for you?
Yeah, absolutely. We started in the agri space, but financial literacy and digital financial literacy is a big passion area for me. So we're doing that on 3 continents currently. We work with the World Bank, and we work with USAID, GIZ. We moved to Asia with Asia Development Bank. We work with banks and fintechs. We're working with, agri-techs like Hello Tractor to train their booking agents and their tractor owners. We're working with small farmers and with GIZ in Mozambique. And I'm super excited about the youth vocational training we're doing with a DFI called GAPI in Mozambique, where they identify what are the areas in which they could get jobs or start their own thing. And for example, they said there's lots of motorcycles, but not enough maintenance shops. So we were doing motorcycle maintenance training. So, there's just numerous use cases, but it's super exciting.
Did you want to show a picture of it? I think we have.
Yeah, please put the picture for some of the work in the field.
Look at this. So this is some of the shots. These are really cool to see. And so they're brought in these kind of cases, and these are some that you own, or these are some the community owns.
Absolutely. So, again, we transfer ownership after 2 years of leasing, but it's not a hindrance to start the training. We lease those out and support it 24/7.
Neat. Okay, Albright, I'm going to come to you. Behavior change and adoption. How are we making sure this tech is adopted effectively by local communities? What are you seeing? And is there a specific example you want to share with us to really hit this point home?
Yes, so during my time as an XR developer on a research project in Lagos Business School, Virtual Human Computer Interaction Lab, that was VHCI lab. Yeah, it's a mouthful. We looked at how we could measure the level of empathy and compassion in young individuals. But what was most interesting was the method of delivery of these prototypes. So the idea was we'll build a prototype, and to deliver it to the schools, we'll travel to the localized communities, educate them about the technology first, first understand, their initial standpoints through surveys before sharing them the VR experiences. So it's kind of like a path to, the final adoption. We first understand where they're coming from before we go ahead to talk about the whole technology, and we give them their first VR experiences to let them understand what the technology is about. Because one thing that we see is it's not only about explaining what VR is, you have to experience it. And one favorite experience is the planks experience, where we'll literally put a plank on the floor and allow you walk on it and see if you can, feel as though you were really walking on that plank on a tall building. But what I really believe is that to ensure adoption in XR technologies in different communities, in these localized communities, we have to have a multifaceted approach. In Nigeria, we see that there is actually a successful adoption, but like I always say, it's on the granular level, and it grows, into a bigger pocket. And one other strategic approach that we are seeing different people or even the government go through is by having innovation hubs. So in Edo State, for example, we have this Edo Innovation Hub where they have different offices for different technology providers, and these providers allow people to learn different technologies, not only about VR technology, but everything that surrounds it. Whether it's even data science, because I always say that for VR technologies, it's there is a whole technology stack to it. We also have the Nigerian government's Digital Skills Nigeria program,
Oh,
and the aim is to enhance digital literacy across the country. So I think I'll just drop in the chat the website, because you can actually have access to different courses on LinkedIn that introduces you to the concept without bothering you about, do you have the headset or do you have these, because like I said, it's a full technology stack that contributes to the knowledge of the metaverse. Yeah.
so and I think, yeah, if you can share that link, I think, or say that link, we can have the folks watching check it out. But so what I heard, Natalie, you say was we're really struggling at the donor level to unlock a lot of this potential. There's some hesitation, and there hasn't really been that groundswell. It sounded like, Albright, you were saying that like there's nice momentum with these hubs that are starting to happen. There's some government support. What is holding us back in Nigeria from like widespread adoption? Is it still a cost thing? Is it just a awareness, a literacy that this technology can drive, entrepreneurship outcomes and other kind of development outcomes? What's holding us back?
A lot of things, actually. You mentioned them. So I'll just reiterate. Awareness. First
Yeah,
of all, when you talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, like I said earlier, it's something you can't necessarily explain, because people will say, why should I use a headset over using my phone? My phone already does
yeah,
the work for me. Exactly. So if you have experienced using a VR headset, you would not necessarily compare it to a phone. You might even start thinking of a PC, compared to a phone. So it's more like showing them what these technologies can do. And I also think about the marketing. So when you think VR, we see the industry pushing it more like, a gamified experience. So people that are not necessarily big gamers or big on gaming might not necessarily know how to apply it to their different, works and whatever they do. So one of the things, like I always share on LinkedIn, is, VR for enterprise. We are talking about how VR can be applied to different, different jobs and different use cases as well. And one other thing is the high cost, like I said. People have to be convinced that they actually need this for, whatever they're doing. Is it companies that will be adopting it? That's the question. Or is it individuals that would need these headsets? So, if we can go over these hurdles of seeing it as from a nice to have to a necessity, I think we'll be able to solve that question of how are we going to get the widespread adoption of this headset. And another question that's always bugging me is, when you say, how can we get this headsets to be widespread? The question is why. That's what people always ask you. Why do you want it to be adopted on a widespread? How is it going to help me?
yeah.
So these are the questions that we as creatives in the industry should also be answering while we share the amazing technology.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this last question I have, and then I have one from the audience as well, queued up. Look, this conference, we're going to talk a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, and its impacts on global development. That seems to be the hot topic of the year. How does advancement in AI affect maybe XR technology, maybe specifically mobile-based XR technology? And what does that development look like? What does it allow us to do, the intersection of these two technologies? Natalie, over to you first, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we're already starting to work with AI and VR and AR. And if you think about it in this way, you can personalize experiences, right? So
Yeah.
we kind of fell into doing a lot of HR and onboarding. As you can imagine, if you normally have to take people into the field and pay all the costs of travel and all the time to organize and all of that, but we can rather virtually take them into the field. Not only does it help climate wise, but it helps in terms of just making an easier experience. Well, if you can augment the HR and onboarding with here are the actual policies of the company, and here's an avatar that can communicate back and forth with you and answer questions, it makes it all that more exciting. So I think this whole world of learning and training in VR and AR, it's AI just is makes sense as a component
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, Albright, over to you. Anything to add to that? And one of the questions we got in the chat was, how is content even developed for the headset? So maybe you can help answer that question. Versus, for instance, a phone, or in relationship to a phone. And then how would technology like AI actually augment, the or allow for the XR revolution to take fold?
Yeah, I would first start with the second question. Recently I've gone back to some of the movies that I've watched in the past because I'm big on action movies and sci-fi. And we always talk about Ready Player One or the
Yeah.
Matrix trilogy and all that. But when I went back to watch these movies, I watched it from the lens of a VR developer, and I thought about, realistic non-player characters, NPCs, how you can, just walk into a world and, talk to computer characters, and how AI today now makes those movies make sense, And there's the most recent movie, Atlas. Jennifer Lopez acted it, and everything is boiling down to the fact that AI is definitely going to revolutionize how we build VR experiences or XR experiences generally. I see that you can make personalized content, just like Natalie said, and some of the projects I've been working on personally is even to use OpenAI APIs to make NPCs more natural, like to have more natural conversations with you or with whatever user is having that experience. But of course, one question that we always ask is, how does this affect data privacy? So I'm always big on data privacy, even in my line of work. So that's one of the things that we should also consider while we use these APIs. I should also mention that the World Economic Forum highlighted that data privacy regulations in many developing countries, including Nigeria, is evolving. And this is very important to highlight because, even as we grow in the use of AI, we have to consider, how our data is being used and how it's being stored as well, and establish regulatory frameworks around that. But to your question of how is VR experiences being built, there are different technology stacks out there, and just like I said earlier, in the use of or having the understanding of whether it's even user experience design or 3D environment design or character design, there are different technologies out there. You can look at Unity. Unity has this Unity Learn that allows you to learn how to build some of these experiences. You have Unreal Engine and all that. This will be a course if I start talking about it, but
Yeah.
and finally, I actually created a course back then on 3D environmental design with Blender for XR, because I understood that even though we talk about building VR technologies, we might not necessarily know how to create these environments. So that's something you can just look up on the web as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that when we were building, we were building a lot of 3D environments for virtual events, and we were having to pay for expensive developer time to actually create these and author these virtual environments in a tool called Mozilla Hub. You mentioned Unity. We talked a little bit about Unreal Engine. These are great ecosystems that you can kind of get started in and learn in. But it does seem to me that with AI, the potential to lower the cost and the time to develop these, whether they're training environments or whatnot, inside, for XR participants is tremendous. And then being able to personalize it to be able to do a training in Zambia and have a context that is specific to Zambia without having to spend lots of design dollars is tremendous. So, all right, friends, we're at the end of our session, but we want to thank both of you so much for taking the time, for waking up early to join us. If we didn't get to your question, we will do our best to head into the chat and have Albright and Natalie share. If you're excited about XR technology, definitely follow up with both of them. Albright, you have a website. Natalie, you have XR Global, right? We can easily find you in the interwebs, on the interwebs. Awesome. All right. So again, thank you everybody to tuning in for this keynote, and I will pass the buck to our next group of sessions. All right. Thanks again to Natalie and Albright.
Thanks so much.